few powerful people and banks control the money in the world. As I run a company, I don't tax them 70% of their money. I don't force them into debt, give them an education system which makes them dependent on me. People think the banks are there to look after their money, help them with their retirement. That's the adverts, isn't it? Print money out of nothing, lend it to you, get you addicted to it and earn interest on you for your life. And then when you die, they'll take 40% of it inheritance tax. If you're rich, you create products. If you're broke, you are the product. Some of the most successful things I've done when I've got good in my industry, but I've borrowed things in unrelated industries. $250 million I've made in information.
$250 million. Rob Moore, we are back. Second episode, mate. Let's run it back. Money Matrix is the new name of this latest book that you're bringing out. I think it's a cracking topic to get into because I know that one of your goals over the next 10 years is to become one of the most researched and most knowledgeable authors on money. So give me a bit of a breakdown on the Money Matrix as you see it.
Yeah, so the Money Matrix is the hidden financial system where a few powerful people and banks control the money in the world. That in and of itself is not wrong because I run a company, have 130 staff, and I control the money in my company, but I don't mislead my staff on how it works. They know they're going to get paid, they get paid, they do a good job, they get paid. I don't force them into debt, I don't tax them 70% of their money, and I don't give them an education system which makes them dependent on me and hide how I'm really making money from them. I think as part of someone's basic education, whether it's in school or in adult, where you've got to unlearn what you learned in school, you need to know how money works. Because people say that money isn't important, but money is everything. Because everything that you're good at is stored in monetary value, because I exchange with you what you're good at and you exchange with me what I'm good at. Our value is inherently stored in the money. So people say, oh, I should be paid more. No, you're paid what you're worth. And if you're worth more, you'd be paid more. The Money Matrix is a system that is a for-profit corporation. Banks are for-profit systems. People think the banks are there to look after their money, help them with their retirement. That's the adverts, isn't it? That the banks care about you. Come in, sit down. We love you. We'll look after your pension and retirement. No. They will print money out of nothing, lend it to you, get you addicted to it and earn interest on you for your life. Then they will, in cohorts with the government, because people think governments and central banks are supposed to be separate. They're not. They're one. So the governments will tax you and tax you and tax you, and the banks will lend to you and lend to you and lend to you money they didn't even earn, they just created, and they'll earn interest off of it. They'll give you propaganda that owning a house is good and getting loans are good, and trap you into debt for the rest of your life. And then when you die, they'll take 40% of it inheritance tax. So that's how it really works. So if you're rich, you create products. If you're broke, you are the product. So most people are the product for the bank. And I just want to teach people how it is in reality. And the Money Matrix the book is beat the money system and build generational wealth. Money Matrix, beat the money system and build generational wealth. So in order to beat the money system, you have to learn how the money system works. And then when you learn how the money system works, you can play it at its own game. I'll tell you a way I did this 17 years ago. I used to get loans for cars and, credit cards and holidays and anything I wanted to consume or which was a depreciating liability I would get loans for, and I would lose twice. I would lose on the depreciation and I would lose on the interest on the loan. And it's funny because back then, if you said you wanted a loan to buy a house, they'd turn you down. But if you wanted a loan for a car or a conservatory, they'd have given it to you. And then I learned, actually, I could get a loan from a bank and buy an appreciating asset. And I bought my first house 20 years ago, which has doubled in value. And so instead of getting a loan for something that went down in value, I got a loan for something that went up in value. And instead of my money being at risk in the bank's risk is with me. So I now own 340 properties, and most of those are bank funded. And so the banks take all the risk because I've got all their money. Whereas if I have money in the bank, I'm taking all the risk because they've got my money. So this is just some of the stuff I just want to teach the world.
So when you break it down, how many people do you think, obviously we're talking about business owners that listen to this podcast, we're talking about individuals that work jobs. As a kind of like a percentage margin, how many of the people truly understand money? Would you say it's 90% of people understand money, or would you say it's 10% of people understand money?
Well, I think on a basic level of how money works, a universal exchange of value, a unit of account, you get paid what you're worth. If you want to get paid more, you need to do more. I'd say 5 to 10% of the population max.
Right.
Max. But in terms of how the money system really works, I'd say 0.1% max. I mean, I'm clutching at straws here in terms of what the real figures are. You couldn't ever do a study on it because that study would get warped. But, I'll give you an example. Most people, when they want a pay rise, they ask for a pay rise. That's just the worst thing to do. I've got 130 staff. And if any of them come to me and go, hey, Rob, I want a pay rise. Mortgages have gone up with interest rates are high, inflation. It's like, why do I want to pay you more so you can pay the banks more? Well, why do I want to do that? The way to get a pay rise from me is to say, hey, Rob, I think I can make you 100 grand next year in your business. Here's the proposal. Can I have 15% of it?
Yeah.
Then I'm saying yes.
Yeah. Because you delivered it based upon the value that you're going to bring to the table.
I do not pay someone to pay their mortgages and make the bank's money, pay their expenses. I pay someone to be valuable to me. And that sounds harsh. People think that's harsh. Well, Rob only wants his staff because they're valuable. He doesn't want to help them. No, I want to help them, but they have to help me because I'm paying them. So I pay staff. By the way, if I personally hired all the nurses, I'd pay them triple because I think they're worth it, and I'd get more out of them, and I'd get better service. But it's the government that employs all the nurses, and they're paying them shit money.
Yeah.
So if I know someone's good at something, I'll pay them big money because I can't afford to lose them. But if they're not that great, I'm going to pay them not that great money. So if you want to earn more money, you have to be what earning good money is. The universe doesn't work where it gives you what you want. This is like the law of attraction is a complete lie. You've been taught that you get what you want. You set goals, you get what you want. No, you don't get what you want. The only people that kind of get what they want, and they still don't, is children. And the only people that can really demand to get what they want is children. It's childish. I want. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. What you become, you receive. So I became investable, and then I got money to buy property, no money down. But until I'm investable, I don't attract any money. So if you want a pay rise, you have to become what warrants the pay rise, and then you immediately get the pay rise. Because you'll either get it from, some people say to me, oh yeah, but Rob, I've done that and my boss isn't paying me anymore. That either means you haven't done it or the boss can't see it. So someone else will see it and they'll nick you, or you can, go and get another job and get a 20 grand pay rise. So just on a basic level, that's how money works. Most people don't understand that, let alone how the money system works.
So what do you think the key piece is that the most business owners are missing right now?
Well, I mean, the solution to all business is more sales, assuming that you make a net profit margin. And the solution to all sales is more marketing. So all business owners need to get better at marketing, which is attracting and generating leads and interest, and then converting those leads and interest into sales, into cash, which is sales. So on a simple level, it's getting better at marketing and sales. Like, we're in a world now where one of the greatest forms of currency is attention. And so those that get the most podcast downloads attract the most sponsors. Joe Rogan gets a couple of 100 million paid up front. I think he's just about to do his new deal with Spotify. He got 200 million last time.
It's not exclusive this time, is it? It's allowed to go on YouTube as well.
Right. So it was exclusive to Spotify, and Spotify would have paid that for the users. Joe Rogan has millions and millions of listeners. That's why he can command 200 million sponsor contract. The YouTubers who get millions of views and have millions of subscribers, they can make a full-time living just from the ads on YouTube, but then they get all the sponsors, the endorsements. So we're in a world right now where the people who shout the loudest are making a lot of money. The people who are good at getting attention and hacking virality are making a lot of money. I just told you I've been with Andrew Tate last weekend. He's hacked social media. He's had more attention than anyone else. He has had the single biggest interview that's ever been done in the history of the world, bigger than the Princess Diana interview, bigger than the Michael Jackson interview with Tucker Carlson on Twitter. So he had 100 million eyeballs on him, and he shouts the loudest. Now, whether you like him or not, your noise needs to be noisier and louder or clearer, because it's not just ranty, there's also clarity of message than all your competitors and all the other noise. And that is the modern way of making a lot of money. And most business owners, they aren't noisy enough and they aren't clear enough and they aren't getting heard because they're not getting enough attention.
What is the single fastest way that you've found to cut through all that noise? Because obviously you've done 1,000 podcasts now, over 1,000 episodes of the podcast. You've learned something each year. You've done that's cut through more and more noise to get to the level you've got to, and to start to get these interviews with the Andrew Tates. What is the thing that will allow this audience to cut through the most?
Number one, be really good. Like, never stop being good or getting better. There is always room in every market and in every niche for the best, or even the second best or the fifth best or the 12th best, but be really good. Never lose sight of that. Number one. Number two, be prolific. Honestly, if you had a gun to my head and shows me between be great or be prolific, I'd probably say prolific over perfect. The reason I'd say that is because you can become great quicker by being prolific. Be great, be prolific, and then figure out how to hack growth. So what content goes viral on social media? What headlines and thumbnails can you use? Have a look at your attention and your analytics on, say, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, but also your customer behavior and the retention and analytics on your lifetime client value and your conversion rates and your funnels. So consistently observing the behavior in the market that you're in, whether it's content or customers, and then adapting and evolving your pitch, your process, your content according to that feedback. Yeah.
What I've noticed about you and Stephen Bartlett specifically is the fact that you started off introducing predominantly entrepreneurs. You went down that niche, you niched down, you scaled that, and then there was a point in time where you thought, you know what, we've got to go broader here. We've got to have a little bit of a rebrand. Obviously, Stephen didn't rebrand the name, but you rebranded your podcast name from Disruptive Entrepreneur to Disruptors so that you could pivot, right? At what point did you know that needed to happen in order for you to hack the growth?
So for me, it wasn't a decision of hacking the growth. It was a decision of doing what I wanted to do. Stephen Bartlett should change the name of his podcast because it's not really on brand anymore. It's not the diary of a CEO, unless the CEO is himself. It's the diary of anyone and everyone successful. And at the moment, it's the diary of every health hacker out there. But it's a bold move to change the name of something, especially as when you've got a really good reach already. I mean, I'd been doing my podcast 7 years plus, 700 episodes, hundreds of millions of downloads and views when I changed the name, and that's quite a big risk. The ultimate reason that I did it is because I wanted the freedom to interview non-entrepreneurs because I like variety in my life. I mean, you could argue if I kept my show as Disruptive Entrepreneur and just kept interviewing millionaires and billionaires like I did for 700 episodes, that I might be even more well-known in that space. I'm probably the most well-known in the UK, but not the world. But there's just, I need variety in my life. Entrepreneurs often do. And sometimes variety is the curse because you don't get really good at one thing. But I just know I wanted to interview interesting people in all walks of life because, like, some of the most successful things I've done are when I've got good in my industry, but I've borrowed things in unrelated industries.
Yeah.
So I launched a series of NFTs, and I think in one launch in February 2022, I think I sold £800,000 of NFTs in a day. But I didn't do the standard way everyone else did it, selling shitty JPEGs, and now they're worth fuck all. I created some physical pieces of art from my art days, brought back my best series of art and rebirthed it into some NFTs, and people got a physical piece of art and they got the digital art and they got these continually unlockable benefits and bonuses which are worth way more than they paid. So I took what I knew about business and entrepreneurship, but also my art experience going back a decade, 2 decades. So I wanted disruptive entrepreneurs to be disruptors so that I could embrace a more breadth and variety of life in general, but also inspiration for me to be great at what I'm great at. And I get inspired by musicians. I get inspired by artists, not just by entrepreneurs.
It's interesting that you've said how you've gone on to sell 800 grand's worth of NFTs, because if people go back and listen to our first podcast, you said in that podcast about how you started off in your journey trying to be the artist, and what you found when you were doing it is you were the starving artist. You weren't the artist that was able to sell the products. But you went on a journey where you taught yourself entrepreneurship over 8, 10, 12 years, and then it's come back around to you now being able to cash in on what you said your passion was. So is the answer then to most people out there that say they want to follow their passion is to find a way to monetize a business pursuit first and then come back around to the passion once you have the cash?
I really used to be envious of people who were 7 and 12 who knew exactly what they wanted to do in their life, because I never did till I was 27. So I think there are some people who have a clear passion. They should honor that and get good at that. And they will monetize that, because you can monetize anything if you can project energy and enthusiasm and figure out how other people will pay for that, which is turning your passion into your profession. Not everyone's that way, though. And actually, most people don't know what their passion is yet, and they're a bit lost, and they're frustrated because, well, I don't know what my passion is, and everyone says you've got to turn your passion into your profession and find your passion. I don't know what mine is, and I was that guy until I was 27. So if someone said to me, well, you've got to find your passion and turn it into your profession, well, I'd have been doomed. So for everyone else, so if you know what your passion is, great, have the courage to
Follow it.
But if you don't, start a business that makes money first by finding a need. So right now, people are overwhelmed. Right now, people need content editing. You know, you'll probably chop this up into a load of shorts, and this will go on all social channels. You'll need someone to do that. We need podcast and video engineers. We need people to help us with AI. There's so many needs in the market. Go and set up a business on that. Get really good at that. Learn to be passionate about business and making money. And then when you finally do eureka your passion in the middle of the night, then you've got some money to go and pursue it. Both roads lead to success, but most people don't know what their passion is yet. Do not wait until you've eurekaed your passion before you start a business. Go and start a business by finding a need.
I honestly think the fastest way to make money online, and the fastest way to make money if you're going from a job to something else, is to start a service-based business. Because at the end of the day, you are fulfilling a need in the marketplace. The marketplace tells you real quickly if that service is warranted. And you know, if you DM Rob and ask him if he needs an editor, he might not. But if you ask him, he might need an audio engineer. You just pick whatever gets the traction. You can scale, and you can get to 10, 20K a month doing any basic form of service, whether it's video editing, anything else. It's just a no-brainer, isn't it, to start there before you start to try and have the property investments and all this other stuff, because everyone's trying to do all these different modalities and might want to be a drop shipper, this, that, and the other. But services, for me, wouldn't you say, is the fastest way to scale to get to your first 10, 20 grand?
Yes, or information.
Yeah.
So service is great if you've got a service you can provide and you want to provide it. It has a higher overhead than information. Information in the form of a membership site or an online course or a mastermind, or finding out things that people don't know how to do and teaching them how to do it, is very quick. It's the speed of light. That's how fast information travels through fiber optics.
So when you first discovered the information business, 'cause obviously you've made millions out of information.
$250 million in sales I've made in information.
$250 million?
Yeah. I mean, over 16 years, but yeah, $250 million in sales. Yeah.
So break down how you first found that as a vehicle and what kind of opened your eyes to it as a vehicle.
Yeah. So it's not difficult. What happened was I went and worked in a property training business that taught a bit and sourced a bit of property for people. It was my first job outside of working for my dad. And I went to work there because I wanted to learn what the business owner knew, because it looked like he was onto something. And in that first year, I learned how to source properties, learned how to buy properties, learned how to sell properties. I bought 20 myself with my business partner's money. I quickly figured out that what I'd figured out how to do, a lot of people wanted to learn how to do it and didn't know how to do it. And they couldn't believe that I'd done it, because how do you buy 20 properties with other people's money in 1 year? how'd you go from 50 grand in debt to 100 grand in 1 year and 1 million in? So I made my first million just before age 31, and I started just before age 27. So it took me 4 years, which is pretty fast back then. I mean, now you could probably do it quicker if you put the same level of energy in that I did. You could probably do it in 2 or 3, maybe. But people kept saying, how did you do it, Rob? How did you do it, Rob? And if enough people say, how do you do it, Rob? Then you teach them and charge them. And at first, I just started telling people because they were asking and I was nice. But I soon realized, well, one, this information is too valuable to tell people for free. And 2, it's not scalable just to tell people, but it's scalable if I could do a course and have 50 people come and learn it. And the way I actually initially started the information business was I wrote a book. So I wrote the UK's best-selling property book called Property Investing Secrets. It's like edition 4 now or something, but we keep updating it when it needs to be updated. And I wrote that in 3 months. I wrote it pretty quick, and that sold a lot of copies. And so we realised the demand was there. And then I also realised property is far more complicated than just what you can write in a book. People need like mentoring and they need like good accountants and brokers and lawyers. So we started to put together mastermind programs and mentoring programs and communities. And, our property trading business, there's no reason this year it won't do 17, 18 million in sales. If you add in our business information business, well, many years we've done more than 20 million in sales. So there's always going to be enough people out there that want to get rich or want to start their own business or want to have freedom or want to retire or just want to quit their job or want to make money. That's the business I'm in. That's the mission I'm on for the rest of my life. And there'll never be any problems for fulfilling those needs.
So as long as you've got some form of skill that can help other people make more money, whether it's in their business or for them personally or anything else, you can sell it.
Or you have the desire to develop that skill.
Right.
Because I didn't start with that skill. Every winner was once a beginner. Every master was once a disaster. So people listening don't need to have the skill now. They need to desire to learn the skill and move into it. Otherwise, you'll never start.
Yeah. So it's essential then. You can acquire any skill, but acquire a skill that gives a direct money win to the people that you're teaching it to, because then you have a saleable info business.
Yeah, or a result, because you're in the fitness space a lot, and I mean that is a brilliant industry. Like if I could pick an industry to be in, I'd pick one that every human needs, but it reinvents itself all the time. So then I could keep creating new products and services, and everyone in the health and fitness industry bitches about the very thing that's great about it.
Yeah.
The very thing that's great about the health and fitness industry as a business model is everyone needs it, but every year you can sell a new product or service around it.
And they all hate each other inherently. As influencers.
I'm not so much in it, so I couldn't speak.
They all have, like, if they have their abtastic 3000 way of doing something over here and someone has their fasting thing over here, it's like instant beef in the fitness industry straight away.
Yeah, but are they doing that to hack the algorithm to get more views?
Of course it's all a natural thing. Like, they're all friends behind the scenes, but then like on the public domain they're all back and forth, but it helps both brands because you galvanize the people on both sides of the coin, and then they become your vigilante fans that will go and defend you in the comments because of it. So it's a whole ecosystem of just hacking growth.
Yeah. So back to your initial point about helping people make money. Yeah, I mean, I help people make money, but I also help people overcome their poor money beliefs. I also help people start businesses. I also help people believe in themselves. So really, anyone selling information and making a business out of it, you're selling a transformation. Like in the health and fitness industry, you're selling a weight loss or a strength increase. So you're selling a transformation, going from A to B. So whether it's debt to wealth or employee to entrepreneur or unfit to fit or unhealthy to healthy or relatively dumb to pretty smart, we're all selling transformation. And that's not just money-related information. Like what people might want to get better at chess. They might want to they might want to be a better parent.
All saleable, all saleable.
Yeah, sell a result, sell an outcome, sell a transformation. The biggest gap between where people are when they come to you and where you take them when they invest in them with you, the longer and bigger that gap and that journey, the more money you're going to make.
Quick one for you guys. This podcast is sponsored by contentremover.com. As many of you are probably aware, I set up contentremoval.com in 2017 to help people remove all forms of online content, and I've looked after some of the biggest names and brands in the world doing it, and I would love to help you if you're struggling. If you're struggling to remove images, videos, search results, fake accounts, or anything online, go to contentremoval.com and we'll help you today.
Yeah. And so as a business model, when you've obviously got a couple of businesses within inside this information business, but when you scale it to that level, is it a saleable asset then? Or is it just a cash flow business to cash flow for property for you?
Okay, so I'll answer generic and specific. So specific to me, my business structure is quite complicated. I have 14 companies, and some of those companies benefit me lifestyle. So, for example, I have a property management company that has 1,350 properties under management. 340 of the units I own, and that lettings company that I own only charges me 5% management fee, whereas it charges all the other clients 12.5% management fee.
Right.
Why would I want to sell that? Because then I'm going to have to go and get 340 units managed at 12.5%, not 5%, which is a lot of money. So in that instance, I might not want to sell it because I get loads of personal benefit out of it. I'll come back to that in a moment. I have an LLP, one of the 14 companies, which owns 5 cars. Lamborghini Aventador and all cars like that. And my Lamborghini Aventador was just over 300 grand new. Now that would have cost me 600 grand before tax, but I bought it in an LLP. I bought it slightly used. I paid 255 for it. I raised some finance on it so I could not have the cash tied up. And I bought it through the company, and the company owns it. And you need to get good accountant's advice on this, by the way, but there's no benefit in kind tax because it's not in a limited company. And so any depreciation on the car comes off the profit, any management and maintenance and insurance, anything. I mean, that car costs 30 grand a year to run. So that all comes off the profit. So if I wanted to sell that business, I'm now going to have to buy any future cars at 600 grand before tax. Because remember, you pay at least half of what you earn in tax, at least. So that's the rule. So anything you've bought after tax, it actually costs you double. So those 2 companies, for example, get hundreds of thousands, maybe even in total millions of benefit for me being run to benefit my lifestyle. And probably I don't want to sell them. However, my information business doesn't really need me. So I have a company called Progressive Property. I have a company called Progressive Success. Lob them 2 together. We do more than 20 million in sales in those. And my name isn't really attached to them. In fact, my name isn't attached to my podcast because it's called Disruptors. And, they're globally scalable. And so they're probably easier to sell. And I would probably get a higher multiplier to sell them, because they're high information. If I built an app or software, I'd sell them for even more because there'd be technology platform on it. So if you become a solopreneur and you are your business and you are, you do boilers and you go and service boilers and install boilers, your business is dead the minute you can't work. If you go on holiday, you earn no money. And that's worth nothing, because if someone's going to buy it, they don't want you in it because they're buying it off you, but you not in it means it doesn't work. And that was probably my businesses in 2016. I was the brand. It was Rob and Mark, my business partner at Progressive Property, and I did 255 speaking days a year, and I taught all the content. And, back then we were doing a few million a year, and we were quite profitable actually, but I was working hard, and the minute I wasn't working in the business, the revenue went down. It didn't go to zero because I had staff then. Now I've got trainers and partners, and the business isn't built around my name. So they're more scalable, more saleable, and probably worth more money. So if you want to sell your business and you want a physical asset as well as a cash cow, you need to build it to sell it or build it to be able to sell it. The best ways to do that is, number one, it not need you. Number two, it not be brand associated with you. And number three, have some kind of technology or software beneath it, because they get the highest multipliers.
So you're actively then, over the years, detaching yourself from all these different brands, including the podcast, so that it's all separate name brands.
Yes. Although, had I kept my name associated, I might have had a bigger personal brand. I've got 3 million followers on my socials and on my email database, but I might have had 10 if I'd have focused everything on my personal brand since 2016. But I'd have been a victim of my own success and stuck in the very things that could have had much higher value. So now what I've done, all my social media is separate and private, and that's my personal asset. I mean, I see my podcast as my personal asset, even though it's called Disruptors. It's still my personal brand. That being said, Joe Rogan's going to do another $200 million deal. But my companies, I can go on holiday for 3 months and really the revenue of my business has not be affected much. Probably a little bit because I can still have an influence, but not much. It can certainly run. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, those companies would still survive. And it depends what you want to build, but freedom is not making more money, but A, paying more tax, B, having more overheads, and C, being a slave to it.
See, I know you've been going to places like Dubai for a little while now and doing stuff out there, and you've seen all the rise of these, more tax efficient places that you didn't have potential privy information to when you started your business. You've built all of it in England under limited companies, limited liability partnerships. I think we've witnessed together over the last 10, 15 years, the UK has gone downhill
to shit.
Okay.
It's fucked.
You must be thinking by now, Rob, surely there must be a pivot for you coming in terms of like location.
Okay, so people think my highest expense might be my staff or my marketing.
Taxes.
My highest expense is tax by a long way, personal and business. VAT, corp tax, income tax, business rates, national insurance, you name it, the list goes on. It pisses me off. It's unfair, it's wrong, it's far too high. The government are wasting what they're taking, and they can print their own money anyway. So I think it's a massive scam. And I think our country's been run into the ground since March 2020, when we all know what happened. And it pisses me off, but I still love my country. And I still have some attachment here. I have some operational things that attach me here. My parents are still alive. My wife's parents are still alive. My kids go to private school here. And to fuck off to Dubai to save some tax, I think at this stage in my life would be selfish, but not in 10 years when, my kids have left and my parents are gone. What's keeping me here then?
Yeah.
So if anyone's 25 and they've got nothing keeping them here, go travel the world, travel to the places with the really good tax
breaks,
like Lisbon, Dubai. Do a bit of research, you find them, and see if you like to live there. On the other side of this, though, I know people that are leaving quickly. I know one billionaire who's going to Monaco. Travel first. Spend a few weeks here, a few weeks there. See if you really like it, because actually moving somewhere to live, it's a big thing. And cultures are so different, and you may end up hating it. And I know a lot of people who moved away for tax reasons ended up coming back. But, moving for tax reasons is the more money you've made, the more you've got to unwind. That being said, now with internet and information businesses, and you literally can do your business with no staff, no fixed cost, no premises. We're in a rented podcast studio, so if you're a podcaster, you don't even have your own podcast equipment. If you've got tech, well, all your tech's on the cloud. So you can run your business remotely and anywhere in the world now. You really can. I know you travel a lot. So I would encourage people to do that if they're young and they've not got a lot of things holding them back.
I travel a lot because I was demoralized from back in 2013, 14 at what's happening here. Like in terms of, I didn't feel.
What don't you like about what's happening here?
I just think it's gone too woke. I think there's so many restrictions that stop me being able to maximize the revenue potential and then employ more people to help me maximize the revenue potential.
You mean because people don't want to fucking work anymore and they're really entitled and they want to do a 3-day working week?
Well, I mean, Rob, that if I employ someone here, it takes me longer to get rid of them if they're shit than it does for me to employ them, which is kind of counterintuitive to me employing them in the first place. Because you're now basically saying to me, if I take someone on in this country, that I'm duty bound and tied to that person for, it could be a 12-month period before I can get rid of them. Because of that, because of the way that you're structured. You obviously, when you get past a certain size in business as well, like you've had to have a HR department, and you know how busy that revolving door is inside a company like yours. You know, there's always someone who has a problem that becomes bigger than the business, but there's no problem bigger than the business, is there? Because the business has to generate revenue for everybody in order for everyone to survive. Otherwise, no one gets fucking paid. So I just find it very counterintuitive to growth here. Like everything seems to be like a chokehold on you. But I also understand from speaking to people that turn over billions in their business that when you get past certain echelons of business, that it becomes easier here. But I think if you're trapped in that middle ground, anywhere between, say, a couple of million a year and 20, 30 million a year, I think you can get properly smacked in the face like every day. And it just seems like it gets harder. I don't know what your opinion is on it, but it just seems okay. From the first time that I spoke to you to now, I think your business has got harder for you to do business in the UK than what it was. And I just don't see how that's very good for anybody.
Yeah, I think that entrepreneurs should be supported. There should be subsidies, tax breaks. They should be assisted in raising finance nationally and globally. I think they should be praised from a PR point of view that they create jobs and create economies. I think that there should be legislation that makes it easier to start and harder to fail. And there isn't. And it's almost like the entrepreneurs are public enemy number one for the government, because there used to be loads of tax breaks, because when I started, there were way more tax breaks in real estate and way more tax breaks in business. And one by one, they've all been shut down. There's still some, they're still worth it, but only just. And what we need is some entrepreneurs in government, because here's the thing. An entrepreneur runs a real economy and a business owner understands real economics. The government do not. Because the government do not run a real economy, because the government do not have to balance their books, because the governments can create more debt every year and their balance sheet can look worse and worse and worse, and they can trade insolvently and get away with it. Whereas if your balance sheet degrades year on year in business and you trade insolvently, you can go to prison for that and probably at best get struck off from having a company and being a director. So it's one rule for them and one rule for you, but they're creating economic policy and they don't understand economics because they can't even balance books. So, yeah, I think it is definitely harder to run a business. We've got bigger. We have over 130 staff now. We've got bigger, but that's because of our determination and our, belligerence and our rebellion.
It's not. You've got bigger, not because they've helped you get bigger. You've got bigger because you understood that unless you get bigger, you can't get the breaks that you need in order to make it profitable to be in the country.
Yeah, well, sometimes we get bigger and we don't necessarily make that much more money. It seems to be you're working more for less as a percentage.
But if obviously a lot of young people from the UK listen to this podcast, a lot of young people from Australia listen to this podcast. If two Western countries that are doing well, got good economies to certain extents. If you were going to start again, Rob, and you had to lay it all out, and you didn't have Progressive now, and it wasn't set up as a limited company in the UK, and you just had a few grand and your bag, and you could just go anywhere and incorporate anywhere, where would you go for the opportunity?
I don't know. I'd travel first and see what's out there, because I think people make that decision too quick. Because there's other things in your life, like your life partner, and where you want to raise your kids and your family. My wife does not want to raise a family in Dubai. She just doesn't. And I respect that. It's one of the reasons we're not there. So there are other factors at play, and you've got to figure out what's most important to you. You know, if you're 22 and you've got no ties, well, then that's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you can generate income globally. So the home of my company, if I could figure it out, wouldn't necessarily be the home of me. Because you can start a company in a certain country and you can be there a minimum or maximum number of days in the year, and you can be in other places a minimum or maximum number of days in the year. So you can plan it such that you meet the minimum or maximum requirements in the country where your company is owned, and then you can travel to other places. And I know people who do this.
I do it.
Yeah.
I do it.
So actually, the only driver for where the company is set up is what country can I set the company up in where the taxes are minimal and it doesn't matter where I earn the money and I can travel relatively freely, but still have a base. Because for me, I couldn't set up, let's say Dubai, but I could only be there 30 days of the year or only be in the UK 30 days of the year. Well, that wouldn't work for me. So it's quite an individual question.
I think it's 90 days, isn't it? 90 days.
Oh, I'm just
saying, just hypothetically.
Yeah, and by the way, the number of days depends on various factors. I've got a billionaire friend of mine who's currently moving to Dubai. Sorry, I've got a billionaire friend of mine who's currently moving to Monaco. And basically, the minimum or maximum number of days you have to be in a certain country starts at X and goes down according to your situation.
But I presume he's not at that level when you've got that much money. I suppose he's not really doing it for money. He's doing it for more lifestyle, isn't he?
No, he's doing it for money because he's in the top 500 targeted people in the country. He's in the top 500 earners in the country. He's a billionaire. And I mean, he ranted on my podcast that they just target him all the time. They've got an ongoing tax investigation into him all the time. And they're going after as much money as they can get just because they can. And they don't know their own rules. So, for example, he has a load of holiday parks, caravan parks, mobile home parks.
Now I know who you're talking about.
And he runs a helicopter because he has to travel from site to site to site. And the revenue are trying to claim that it's personal use because he has a private license. He says it's not personal use, it's business use, but you have to have a private license. You can't have a commercial license because it's not a commercial pilot. And he says that the HMRC don't even know their own rules. It's a business expense because he's using it for business only. And he's having to fight them on all this shit all the time. And he's had enough. So he's leaving. He's going to Monaco.
When it comes to tax codes, and it doesn't matter on the country, am I right in saying that if you read the tax code, it's a lot more to do with what you can deduct against business than it is about charging taxes?
If you want to simplify how to pay less tax, figure out as much as you can that you can run through a company rather than draw and pay tax on. That's the simple answer.
Yeah.
Now, different countries and tax codes will have different things you can or can't run as a business expense. I travelled from Peterborough to London here to do 3 podcasts today, one of which is yours. So therefore, everything, the train,
The food,
the hire, the meeting of the people, everything is a deductible business expense. So now what I do is I make sure that I don't really separate social and professional. And so most of my travel and expenses are business. You know, I went to Romania on a 3-day weekend, I told you, and interviewed Andrew and then Tristan and spent a reasonable amount of time with them. And that was an entire business expense. But I also got to go to another country and enjoy it. So most of the things that you are currently paying for after tax could be run through the business if you change the way you run your life. And some people say, well, that's the tail wagging the dog. You know, I just want to live my life. And fine, live your life and pay 70% in everything you earn and everything you pay in tax. Or change the way you run your life and you run your life more like a business and you get your own personal needs met through your business, which is called a lifestyle business, then probably 50% or more of the things that you're buying after tax you can pay before tax. And that's actually a really simple thing to do.
Yeah, I love that. I know what there's one topic I've got to dive in because I heard you speak about this just recently, actually. The 13 families. Let's talk about let's talk about the 13 families that rule the world in Rob's opinion.
Well, here's the thing. These families, in my book Money Matrix, I referenced all these families who are really powerful. But I sort of slightly changed their name, A, to make it a joke, and B, because I don't want to get assassinated. And I'm probably not anywhere near as big or powerful enough to get assassinated. But, if I said the word Rothschild, everyone would know that's a very powerful family. Going back, that lineage goes back a lot of, not just decades, but centuries. Now, forget conspiracies. Like, the royal family is a powerful family because of its lineage. And if you're born into the royal family, you're born into privilege. Just by the same token, if you're born into an average working family in an African country, you have no privilege. So it naturally stands that some families who built wealth and power over generations have wealth and power and therefore have more control. And there are about 13 of them that have that large amount of power and control. And I reference all of them, but slightly change their names in my book, Money Matrix. Now, I am the most powerful person along with my business partner in my company, and I control how I run my company. And some staff who've left or we've fired who don't like the way my company is run might think I'm greedy or powerful or corrupt or inhumane or whatever. And these 13 families run a company called The World. So I actually don't have a major issue with it because all they're doing is running a large company. It just so happens to be very powerful in the world. And most humans, if you ran the world, and you're a nice guy, but if you ran the world, you might go, oh, I like this tax code, or and I like this rule, or and I'm going to have this rule for me, but all the people can have another rule. You might do that if you ran the world. So it's not a conspiracy for me. It's just a factual reality that there are very powerful families like the Rothschilds who control the education system, who control the banking system, who control the media, and they pump out what they want to pump out that makes them billions. They produce banks, governments, pharmaceutical companies, etc., and they control them all. Like, Vanguard and BlackRock, 86%, I think, of the...
All the top companies in the world?
Yeah, there you go. And you are the product. So humanity, the 8 billion people are the product to these large banks, funds, and families. That's okay if you know this and know how they work and then choose to still be the product. Yeah, okay, fine.
How do they pivot out of being the product, though?
Start your own business. Fight for your own sovereignty and freedom. Become an entrepreneur, go to parts of the world where entrepreneurship is embraced, minimize your taxes, maximize your freedoms. So, for example, banks use your money to make money, and then they lend you money, and that traps you in debt. So figure out how to move your money out of banks and into other classes where you have more control, like property or your own business or gold or S&P 500 or it doesn't have to be like hardcore decentralized crypto. Money is much better and safer in the S&P 500 than it is in one bank.
Watches can be even in watches and stuff like that, can't
Yeah,
it?
watches, classic cars, art, books. I know someone who's building up a collection of books. So, yeah, money isn't real. Fiat currency is not based on anything real. But material items have real value. So take your money out of things that don't have real value and put it into things that have real value. It's one way to control. It's out off grid and out of the system. The watches and the art and the books that you own that might store a lot of value for you, but they're out of, the banks can't shut that down tomorrow. They can't repossess those. So, yeah, having material and physical items, knowing about decentralized asset classes, knowing how to get your tax bill down, going to places where they embrace entrepreneurship and they have good tax breaks. I mean, look, you're never completely free, but you're as free as you could be.
A lot of the big lumps of capital in the world is actually moved through exotic art and all this kind of stuff that most people don't realize. You know, it's all the time because, and just to break it down quick, like the way that paintings and valuables are assessed, you know, allows that you can buy a Rembrandt at 25 million, have it reassessed at 55 million, and clip the ticket on the way through as well. Like there's so many ways you can structure that. That's why art is one of the places. That's why you can even invest in companies like Masterworks and stuff like that and take a portion of that. There's many ways to do it, but art is one of the key ways to move capital when you're talking at the level you're talking at. But Rob, I am glad that you've dropped some knowledge on this money matrix that people are facing today. If there's one last piece of wisdom that you can give this audience right now that they've got to get straight in their life that will move them 1% forward from today, what would it be?
At the end of every piece of content that I've ever done, I always say, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. So everything you want on your life is the other side of fear. If you run away from fear, you're running away from everything you want in your life, but it feels comfortable to do so. If you run towards fear like a rhino charging, it's going to be hard and painful in the moment, but everything you want is on the other side of fear. And facing fear is taking risk. So if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. You know, I'm taking risks writing my book, Money Matrix. My publisher actually politely rejected it. I've got pretty much one of the biggest publishing deals that, I'm with the second biggest publisher in the world, and I've pretty much got the biggest publishing contract for nonfiction. And they pretty much, without saying it, rejected Money Matrix. Basically, it was, could you make it a bit less political? But it is a political book. Like Rage Against the Machine is political rock and metal. So I just said, look, I'll self-publish this and we'll do another one together. So I've taken a risk of losing my publisher. I've taken a risk of, for example, I've got my Andrew Tate episodes and my Tristan Tate episode coming out. I take a risk of getting people hate me for that. I mean, I am still me, not them. But these things that I do that are bigger, bolder moves, that's where all my success is going to come from.
Yeah.
So anything that you're worried about could have a downside or could cause you to have critics or could hurt you reputationally. Maybe if you push through that, everything you've ever wanted in your life is on the other side of it. Because definitely for me, everything I ever want in my life is on the other side of risk and pain. And I always look back and go, fuck me, that I'm so proud of yourself for doing that, because that was hard, but you fucking did it. And look where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, I had a charity boxing fight against someone who was 20 kilos heavier than me, which every boxer I knew said, don't do. No one does that. There's weight divisions for a reason. And I could have set a weight limit and I didn't. I just wanted to fight him at whatever weight he was. And we got 1,800 people in. And I risked getting knocked out by a much bigger guy than me. And I risked losing and looking like a fucking fool in front of everyone because I talked a big game, because I believed in myself. We raised $250,000 for charity. I can't even tell you the doors that have opened since I did that. I ended up not getting the decision, even though I thought I won, but the decision didn't matter. What matters is what I did. And now I still train. I know you box as well, and you were kind to offer help to me. Fucking going through some of those trainings was so hard. You know, the people I sparred with, I fucking sparred with some animals, and it was so hard. And now I've done it, and I just feel so much better for doing it.
And anyone that says that business is harder than boxing is talking crap, right? You agree?
Oh, I find it business much easier than, you know, I've had one fight.
Getting hit in the face is. Can we just confirm getting hit in the face is horrible at every level?
Well, actually, I agree with what Mike Tyson said. He said the fear of getting hit in the face is worse than getting hit in the face. You know, I got put down 3 times in my entire training camp, and I don't really even remember getting put down.
Yeah.
I remember all the times I was shitting it at sparring with people who are much better than me. But the fear of it weighs way more than actually doing it. But having done it, and the people I've met, and the money we raised, and, you know, I now do train regularly with both boxing and Krav Maga, and I would never have done that. I'm 45 and had my first fight, and I know it's a charity fight, but it was still a fight, and he wanted to knock me the fuck out in front of a lot of people, and you know.
That went both ways. You wanted to knock him out too.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the fight, it's online.
Yeah.
You can see.
No, it's a good fight, and
you can see there's one guy trying to knock one guy out, and everyone thought it'd be him or me. But no, I went from the first bell. All my coaching went out the window, not because I was nervous, because I wanted to knock him the fuck out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love seeing it, and it's been great to see you get into the more, you know, because obviously once you've made your money, it's great to see you come back to the fact of like, you know, your health's first and foremost now, because I think that's going to help you in all areas of your life, and you're going to make more money out of it anyway. But no, mate, I appreciate you coming in today, dropping this source on the Money Matrix. I'll put all the links below this video, below this podcast, guys, so you can check out the book and check out Rob's website. I appreciate every single one of you for listening, and if you could do me a favor and share it on every platform you can, much love. Guys, do me a solid favor, drop a comment below this video and let us know who you want on the podcast next.